Hello, I'm Alex Bell. I'm very, very pleased to be with you on this WEB-nesday. It's very hard to say, with HundrED. I'm a recent HundrED ambassador, and if you're here, let me know you're here, and if you're watching online later on, do get in touch. So I'm speaking here from my shed in the bottom of my garden in London. It's a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. We've had the same weather as you for the last week or so. Rain, hail, storms and bright sunshine as well. So that's one way of connecting us. Whatever time it is with you in different parts of the world, it's noon here in London. Just above my head is the Greenwich Meridian line. It's very close to Greenwich, where I live in southeast London, and I think it's a nice analogy to say that we're connected by not just the Meridian line, but by many things, and especially the HundrED organisation. So it's WEB-nesday. We are connecting with ideas. I think the whole point of HundrED is to connect people to capture good ideas that happen in education, so that perhaps we can catch up with the rest of the world. I think the idea of HundrED also is to encourage and to amplify some ideas as well. So if I can just spend some time with you today just sharing some of my ideas that I've been very privileged to be involved with, and perhaps we can encourage and amplify each other with those as well. So that resonates with what I do and who I am. So who am I? I'm Alex Bell. I'm Director of Portland Education. And Portland Education is an organisation which exists for a number of reasons, but its core is purpose. A little while ago I was inspired by a couple of books. Highly recommend this one by David Hyatt. It's called Do Purpose. And it's the idea that if you find what you love and find what you're pretty good at, then things will start happening. People will join with you. You can make a career of it. And that's pretty much what's happened with Portland Education. So recommend that one. A little while after I started Portland, also, I came across this book by the wonderful Seth Godin called What to Do When It's Your Turn. And it's always your turn. And it's the idea of stepping up with ideas that you've always thought you should do, but actually should just get on with it. So both books, disarmingly simple, almost simplistic, very easy to apply. And those are some of the principles behind what I do at Portland Education. So before I set up the company, I was a fairly successful school leader in London, led two schools to be outstanding in the government quality assurance. And then with Portland, I set up some coaching for school leaders and also some projects with young people. And I think at the core of all that I do, it's this idea of agency, this idea that everybody has a voice, should use their voice, and in speaking up and using their voice, they can encourage and amplify others. So at the moment, I've got about 114 school leaders that I coach, mostly in the UK, but sometimes via Skype internationally as well. And I've done a number of projects with young people here in the UK, in Africa, and in the Caribbean as well. I'm a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, another great organisation like HundrED that encourages and amplifies others with great ideas. And I want to talk to you about a couple of those ideas now. The first one is something which came about back in 2016. I was very honoured to be invited to help celebrate and commemorate Barbados's 50th anniversary of independence. Barbados is a very proud nation with wonderful things going on there, but not always very prominent on the world stage. And I think that's something which they are very much addressing at the moment. So in 2015, I went out there on a couple of visits to set up some projects. And one project was called Hello London, Hello Barbados. It was a festival celebrating the youth of Barbados and their culture in the UK, and we had it at the Museum of London, Docklands. We flew over 15 of their best young people and performers to celebrate Barbadian culture in London. We had 5,000 people come to the festival, which was overwhelming. It was Time Out's #1 thing to do that weekend as a festival. It was free and it was very exciting. We'd never done anything like that before. It was overwhelming, the response we got, and so it encouraged us to do some more things. So in November 2016, it was Barbados' actual anniversary itself. So I flew over there and did a project with young people and schools out there called 50 Words for Barbados 50. And that was a very simple idea of asking young people to choose one word which represented their country to the world in its 50th year of independence. This was one of the things which came out of it. A great little book. So here's the words they chose. You can see them there. Very simple idea, very effective, but it had legs. It really resonated with lots of people around the world. So this little girl here, she chose the word peace, the shyest little girl you can imagine in an elementary school in Barbados. Her image became an icon for many things over that year of celebration and commemoration. That image became the Prime Minister of Barbados's Christmas card that year in 2016. All these images got put into a time capsule, which was put beneath the national monument, a new national monument in Barbados to celebrate their 50th year. And so these young people's words, their faces and their messages will be there for the next 50 years and in that time capsule. So very exciting. We also turned these images into giant posters. Posters which were about this size. Excuse this one, this one's me. But you can see just how big they were, with the wonderful JR and his Inside Out project, which is an amazing organisation which again encourages and amplifies people to have campaigns. So the campaign we had was to get the young people of Barbados' voices heard all over the world. That was published, one of those images was published in JR's book, Inside Out, which you can get online. And then those big posters were exhibited in London and in Barbados. So they're in the permanent collections of the Barbados Museum, of the British High Commission in Barbados, and also some relics, some artefacts also in the Museum of London too. So this idea of taking young people's voices, very simple idea, one word, and amplifying them as much as we could, really had some legs. So it encouraged me then to do some work when I was invited to with the wonderful Malawian NGO called Maloto. Maloto is an NGO which was formed about 10 years ago by the wonderful Anna Keys, who's US and Malawi based, a Malawian who was very successful in her international career, went back to Malawi to found this charity to give voice and hope to young people who perhaps were very challenged by their circumstances. I got involved with them with their Mzuzu International Academy in 2017, and they asked me to work on student voice there. We did some very nice projects with the older children and students, leading a whole day of speaking and listening activities for the younger children, and did some ongoing training for their teachers there. And that went very well, so they asked me back in 2018, this year, in February, and they wanted to do something even further. Now these young people had really found their voice and found they wanted to talk about their circumstances, and they thought it would be interesting for others to hear it around the world. That's the idea that we at Portland took, and we extended it further. So we came up with an idea called Mzuzu, which is the name of the area in Malawi where these young people are. Mzuzu Talks, World Listens. Mzuzu Talks, World Listens. And hopefully somewhere in the social media world, you can find the link to that. I think on the 100 page, in my link here, there is something which tells you a little bit more about that. So Mzuzu Talks, World Listens. Young people from Mzuzu International Academy spoke about their circumstances, things that were important to you, their context, important to them. And they did TED-style talks for about 5 or 10 minutes, and we filmed them. We filmed them on very rudimentary equipment, just simple camera phones, no lighting, not very good sound, but we captured the essence of what they wanted to say. and we captured it in a way that we wanted to send out to other countries around the world. One, as a call to action to other children around the world, and two, just to make them understand that they are listened to. Those children in Malawi who perhaps don't always feel as though the world is listening, really had an audience and a platform. Interestingly enough, just between doing the first project and the second project with them in Malawi, I'd applied with them for some of those speakers to speak at TEDx Teen, an organisation I'm very proud to be associated with. But it seemed like the speakers on TEDx Teen were ones which had huge social media followings, Instagram accounts, and already had an audience. And for me, this was about taking young people with something to say, but didn't naturally have a large web-based audience, and helping that along a little bit. So we sent out the Mzuzu Talks World Listens talks to 21 countries, and we were delighted when we got more than 21 replies from schools, from educators, from just people, very supportive people around the world. The young people spoke about things very important to them: albinism, deforestation, colonial legacies, things very pertinent to Malawi, which perhaps are unique to Malawi in many ways, but also have universal appeal and I think resonance as well. So with this idea of young people who perhaps don't always have a voice, being given a platform, something very simple, something very easy to understand, we took Mzuzu Talks World Listens and we want to do something else with it. And I think that's where you come in. That's where I hope the HundrED platform and this WEB-nesday, and I can't even say it, WEB-nesday, and the growing number of ambassadors, growing number of supporters that HundrED has, can really help things like this where we have young people's voices encouraged, young people's voices amplified by the work that we do. So what I'm asking you to do, if you'd like to, is if you have an organisation, if you have a project, if you have an idea which is similar to Mzuzu Talks World Listens, or the Barbados work, the 50 Words for Barbados 50, or the festival, then do get in touch. Do get in touch with me, Alex Bell, at Portland Education. You'll have to freeze frame this, I think, to try and get the thing. I imagine this is probably back to front, actually, looking at it, but who knows? I'm sure you could work that out. Or through the HundrED organisation, which would be really fantastic. Because I think the more that we can encourage these young people, that there are adults and other young people, one, listening to them, that what they have to say is important, what they have to say has resonance for others around the world in maybe very, very different circumstances. That's important. And I think the more we can join up those dots of voices which aren't always heard, of voices which don't always have great access to the internet. During my first visit to Malawi, we were without electricity for 4 days and without the internet for even longer. So those are the kind of challenges which I don't think should stop us from recording those voices and getting them out there. You can always get a simple camera phone, or you can get something a bit more sophisticated. Just capture it if you can, and then get it out there. We through HundrED, I'm sure there's many ways of getting those voices amplified and encouraged. So your help, please. If there's anything along the lines of Mzuzu Talks World Listens, I'd love to hear from you. HundrED would love to hear from you. In terms of agency of those working in education, as I said before, I coach quite a few school leaders here in the UK, about 114 at the moment, and it seems to me like their voices sometimes need to be heard above the jurisdictions they work with, above the way that education sometimes is going in the direction we don't want it to. And I think if more of us with voices which aren't always heard join up, then it's a force for good. And that's what I'm about. If there's anything else you're interested in, if you want to hear about how to set up the posters project, it's very simple to do, very effective, and it has legs. It can really to resonate as well. So thanks very much indeed for your time today. I'm Alex Bell. It's been a delight to talk to you on this WEB-nesday. with the 100 organisation. More power to our elbow. I'm very proud to be a very recent ambassador, but I think there's more coming on board, and there's even more supporters joining us online and through social media. I love what the idea is. I love the ambitions of it, and I think what's amazing is that it's actually happening. It's effective. It's a simple, very effective idea. Its purpose is clear. Its purpose is to amplify and to encourage, and I'm very glad to be here. So I'll sign off for now. I'm looking forward to the next WEB-nesday speakers coming up every Wednesday throughout August and beyond. And I look forward to meeting you either online or by you getting in touch, or perhaps at one of the 100 events regionally or globally. Thanks very much indeed.